outside Mallow in a farmer's field with a broken goalpost and cow shite on the pitch, and I remember what the corner flag was hanging up was sitting on a buckalon. You have to be half crazy to do it, but I was happy to be half crazy.
Five in a row is good, but Ballymacarbry have done 38. This amazing team haven't been beaten in Waterford club football since 1982. That wasn't long after Michael Ryan was convinced to come in as the team's manager.
I wasn't really interested, so I said I'd put him through a really hard training session and I'd never be asked back again. But anyway, when the training was over, I was happy enough with myself. I trained really hard and did a lot of running in that session, which I don't normally do. I'd normally be doing a lot of work with the ball, but did a lot of running. So I thought, that's be the end of this. But a couple of players came up to me and asked me when I would train again. So I trained the following night. I reckon there wouldn't be too many there, but there was 2 extra there the following night. So down in Strably, I remember it well. Again, I thought the county final was the end of everything, and I thought, if we can win the county final, that'll be the end of that, and I'll fade away into the background. But I remember we won that final against Dunhill. Tough game, really tough game. Marie Crowley scored a penalty that day. And I was sitting in the dressing room, I was sitting in the clubhouse in Strably after, and one of the players bought me a pint. And I remember thinking, that's the end of this. And somebody asked me, when is the Munster Club Championship starting? I just nearly died. So we trained right through the winter, and then we got to the Munster final. And it's hard to believe, looking back now, how far the association has come, because that game was played up in a place called Ballyclough up in Cork, outside Mallow, in a farmer's field with a broken goalpost and cow shite on the pitch, and I remember what the corner flag was hanging up was sitting on a buckalon, and we actually scored 1 point that particular day. We were beaten out the gate, but we went back and got at it again and beaten a couple of Munster finals, but we finally won one, and then the whole thing spiralled from there.
Spiral it did. From a reluctant stopgap to a pioneering revelation. Michael Ryan and the Ballymacarbry and Waterford ladies went on to become one of the GA's most successful ever teams.
I remember when matches were being videoed, that they would be videoed, and you had the old VCR recorder in the sitting room, and late at night Dad would be up and he'd be watching the video and he'd be rewinding, and he'd be there, wherever there was a slow motion button or whenever that came into play, he'd be there and he'd be slowing things down and analysing a play or someone's movement or so on. And that took hours. If you were to talk to players in the 70s and 80s and even talk to players in the last 3 or 4 years, they would say the same thing, that when he starts talking in a dressing room, that's everybody stops and listens. He would never let you get too big for your boots, and that would be something he would hate to creep in, no matter what success was there, no matter what had happened the previous year. Especially whether or not you were related to him. I mean, that didn't come into the equation at all, and my sisters, my mother and my aunts and cousins can testify to that.
The special days for me were the days here in this club, because I have never come across a more dedicated bunch of players than the Ballymacarbry and the Waterford ladies footballers. They trained really hard and they were really committed. And in those days, we were travelling all over the country, and they paid their own bus fare and they paid for meals themselves, and there was no perks in the game in those days. But they were really together, a really united front. Bit by bit, we climbed the stairs to success and eventually won an All-Ireland club title in 87 up in Tullamore, and then went on to win 10 club titles in 12 years. Incredible times. I think we only lost 2 games in 12 years. And then Waterford were struggling at the time, and the club team started representing Waterford. So in 8 major games, we played Kerry and we lost every single one of them. And I remember thinking down in Cappoquin, the hurt of it, and a couple of players gave up. And so we went back at it one more time, and we started turning a few 14 and 15-year-olds and got to the Munster final again in 91. Eventually beat Kerry, and again, then the county started to take off. So it wasn't easy, These girls had to work hard at club and county level, and there were a lot of setbacks along the way. But what I admired about it most was every time there was adversity and setbacks, they seemed to come back stronger than ever.
Watching Dad, I suppose, go off to trainings, walking down here to the pitch and going, gathering behind the goals and trying to catch the ball and give it back out to the senior players is how we would have spent our evenings, you know. The great thing about it is the players who have gone before, and even the players who are there now, are already and have already given back hugely to the club, in the sense that getting involved in underage coaching, or be it the administration structures of the club. So it's fantastic.
I'm managing Waterford for 25 seasons, and in 2006 I had 3 daughters on the team. And you know, when your daughters are playing, you're either accused of being too soft or too hard. And I felt anyway, you know, I felt it's time for somebody else to take up the mantle. And there's a lot of different girls around here who would have been in and out of my house 1,000 times, because they're great friends of my daughters, and you know, there's a great camaraderie about this, and there's a closeness about it, and there's a pride as well. And I remember reading an article about Cross Medlen a few years ago, and I know that Mount Sinai had it in Waterford for years as well. There's a tremendous pride in the club. And if you have pride in your own club, and a lot of these girls remember their parents would have played, or their aunts would have played, or cousins would have played. The current players realise that they're carrying on the baton.
13 years after stepping back from Ballymacarbry, Michael Ryan is back in as a selector. Now, they're after Munster glory again. 38 county titles later, Ballymacarbry are still mad for it, and so is Michael Ryan.
The past doesn't necessarily guarantee anything. We're very aware of the fact that, you know, the past players have gone before us are people who are All-Ireland winners, you know, and they have county titles, they also have Munster titles, they're also All-Ireland winners. So, you know, there's nothing that we need to be getting too far ahead of ourselves here. Not taking things for granted and coming back every year and not having to rely on the past, and, you know, wanting to create even more of a future for both the current players and the players coming after us is probably what drives us the most. On a county sense, we'd be happy with ourselves, but, you know, there's still definitely more there to be won.
You have to be half crazy to do it, but I was happy to be half crazy.